Hello, welcome to the Revero Success Story podcast. I'm here today with Charity. She's a coach from Revero, and we're excited to hear her tell us her journey on the carnivore diet. Hi, Charity.
Hi, Tracy.
Thank you for coming and sharing.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I want to start out by asking you, like what your life was like, your health conditions, or your foods that you ate prior to coming to carnivore.
Sure. So I was vegetarian for over 10 years. Um, super grain heavy, super bean heavy. I realize now that I was basically running on sugar. Um, I was experiencing gut issues. Just to be very forthright, I had chronic constipation for 3 solid years. Every single day I dealt with this. I probably dealt with intermittent problems for twice that long. Um, I also I'd have really bad hanger, like, which I now realize is insulin resistance. I would get super hungry so suddenly, and I get shaky and cold sweats, and of course, incredibly emotional, like mood swings with it as well. So those are the two things that I was really dealing with that were really kind of felt like they were taking over my life for a while there. Um,
Oh, yeah. And then you mentioned to me that you have had two different pregnancies, and one was with carnivore, and one was with is it vegetarian that you did the other one with?
yeah. So I was like 7 or 8 years into vegetarian when I became pregnant with my second child. So again, I'm running on sugar. At the time, I was also a group fitness instructor. So I was teaching a lot of these high intensity interval training classes, a couple times a day, couple days a week. And then I was doing exercise outside of that as well. So not only was I not fueling my body properly, I was not feeding it the proper nutrients. I was also really demanding a lot from it. And, in addition to being pregnant. So I'm already kind of starting from a negative point, I felt like. So they like to test your blood work in the beginning of a pregnancy. And my iron levels at the beginning of my that pregnancy were on the low end of like the standard range. So not too bad. Um, but then halfway through my pregnancy, I was hit with this sudden uncontrollable craving for ice. And I don't normally like ice like as a person in my normal life. So I thought that was really weird. And it was just uncontrollable. I just needed it all the time, which I now realize was actual legitimate pica, which is, craving for a non-food item, which thank God it was sort of benign. It was ice. It wasn't like something crazy, but um it was just like on my mind all the time. So I now I learned that that was a symptom of anemia. So in the third trimester, when they tested my blood again, I was severely anemic, and to the point where my midwife was just like, "Oh my gosh, how are you even functioning?" I said, "I don't know. I was, doing all these things. I just thought that that was part of the course, I guess." Um, so there was the severe anemia. Then we did the blood sugar testing. I didn't do the actual glucola drink, but I pricked my finger a couple times a day for about 10 days and realized that my body was giving me what I felt were pretty high sugar readings after every single time I ate. My care team wasn't concerned about it, but I felt personally like it would be nice if they weren't as high as they had been. So flash forward to the end of the pregnancy, I had gained 35 pounds, which is the upper end of, the standard range. They say 25 to 35 pounds. That's just worth noting because it was different in my carnivore pregnancy. Um, but so my birth story is then I was in early labor for 5 days. So I'm prone to something that's called prodromal labor, which um, a lot of people say that it's false labor. I feel like it's a little bit of a misnomer because in my experience, it wasn't false labor. It was just really slow. So by the time I got to the hospital after 5 days, I had just passed early labor and was at the cusp into active labor, but everything had stopped. So I had to be put on Pitocin to keep it going. That is, of course, synthetic oxytocin, which is the hormone that tells your uterus to contract. Um, so 16 hours on Pitocin later, I delivered. And then, delivered placenta and all that. And then I hemorrhaged. Um, so hemorrhage is, not super uncommon. I think it is the number one or, the most common complication with delivering. So they're really equipped to deal with it. And I was in a hospital. So I had a hep lock in the one arm from the Pitocin, but they had put a hep lock in the other arm just in case. They brought a surgical specialist in. They did a bunch of other things. I think they started the Pitocin again. They gave me different medications, and they did they explored my uterus to try and find if there were any clots or anything like that. Finally, they got it under control. And by the time I stopped bleeding and they tested my levels again, I was right at the cusp where they were offering me a blood transfusion and um, recommending one, like really telling me that I should do this. But so it didn't end up being life threatening, but they were very serious about the fact that I had lost a lot of blood. Um, and I mean, I should just be aware of that. I guess it was not a normal amount of blood. So that really put me behind on a lot. My milk didn't come in for like 4 or 5 days. I was super gray and sallow in the hospital. I was not able to walk around. I barely could even get myself to the restroom and back. And I remember after coming home, it took me like a solid month before my energy levels felt like I may be 1 day postpartum. So, because I was working so hard to physically heal during that time, I also feel like mentally I wasn't able to be as present with my newborn as I would have liked to have been. Um, so yeah, the physical recovery was really rough. When I was able to start doing some light exercise a little bit later, maybe 6 or 8 weeks after, I realized that I was also dealing with leakage and like urine leakage. And I had to actually go through a round of pelvic floor physical therapy in order to heal that and to get that under control as well. Um, so that in a nutshell is, my vegetarian pregnancy. Yeah.
Wow, that was a lot to have to go through, it sounds like, and then your iron being so low already. Did they give you iron or did they just give you the blood or how did they get you back?
So I was given the choice because I was just over that cusp. It was my choice as to whether or not I would take the transfusion. And I went back and forth on it for a long time. And I personally decided not to do that, and to go like the more natural route. And it worked out, thank God. But I guess it was a bit of a risk.
Yeah, it takes a while to recuperate from something like that. I understand. I've had 4 children and I worked in labor and delivery for a long time, and that's a lot that you had to go through. So how did you learn about the carnivore diet and how did you implement that?
So I was almost 2 years into um, that child nursing. I was nursing that child for almost 2 years, and my husband and I decided to sort of go low carb, and we went from low carb and slid into keto. And I was still a vegetarian, so being a vegetarian keto on keto is incredibly difficult. um, but during that time, because we were kind of thinking about nutrition as a whole, I was doing some deep dives into nutrition and more research and reading books, and sort of became convinced that I needed to add meat back into my diet, and I specifically needed to add beef. So I did, and it was a journey. I had to do only like little bits at a time, but every single day I kind of worked on it and built up and up and up, and finally, when my body, first of all, sort of got back the ability to digest the meat. And I was able to get over the mental hump of eating meat again. I realized that I was starved. Like I loved meat and I was starving. So from there, and I sort of started to realize like I didn't have to track anything if I ate just a lot of meat. Like keto's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of, and it can get very, very complicated if you let it. So I just realized it was an easier, like simpler way of eating. Um, and sort of then afterward realized that it was a thing that people do. Like carnivore's a thing, which is amazing.
It is. It's very amazing, and it is so simple. And I could not do keto. I know it sounds terrible, but I couldn't do it for a month even because I did not like counting everything I put in my mouth, and so that made it difficult. Although it's a good way if especially coming from standard American or
Sure.
that sort of thing. But um, so tell me about your carnivore pregnancy then.
So carnivore pregnancy. Um, I was about 6 months to this way of eating. So very, very meat heavy. I was still eating some fruit and stuff here and there, but very meat heavy. 6 months in, found out I was pregnant again with baby number three. Um, right away, I experienced extreme meat aversions. So I feel like this is talked a lot about in the carnivore community. But I'm not sure if I've heard like experts tell me why this is happening because it's so distressing because you know in your mind, like you need these nutrients, baby needs these nutrients, and you just can't even think about it. You like can't be near it at all. So I dealt with that and I sort of just did what I could. I stayed whole food. I could do like white meat, like chicken and stuff, and definitely eggs as well. Um, but there were definitely some like white potatoes getting me by and curbing the nausea. Um, but that tapered off, and in second trimester, I was able to become definitely more animal based. I ate a lot of avocados as well, but it was primarily beef that I was eating. Um, so my in the beginning with my iron levels, I was right in the like smack dab in the middle of that standard range. So that already I felt like was a great start. I was seeing improvements there. No symptoms whatsoever. I was on high alert for those symptoms to come back of the anemia. None whatsoever. When they tested them again, my iron levels had gone up. Like I was on the upper range of normal, which felt great because I felt amazing. I didn't have that depleted feeling that I had in the prior pregnancy. My blood sugars were way more stable as well as lower. Um, End of pregnancy, total weight gain was 20 pounds, like 20 versus 35. And it's like I didn't deprive myself at all. I ate to satiety. I ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, but it seems like my body just took what it needed and nothing more, which was amazing. Um, so I still had a bit of a long labor. I think I labored for 3 days at home before coming to the hospital. But when I got there, I found out that I was 100% effaced, 5 centimeters dilated. You would know what that means. It means I am like totally in active labor. I'm rounding the corner. Like my body's doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is amazing. So, um, 5 hours later, I delivered. And they had been on, so because of my prior hemorrhage, we had a hep block placed just in case um, anything happened. And the plan was to start the Pitocin right after delivery anyway. So we did that just as a precaution. And it was, something that we had discussed and decided beforehand. But other than that, really, we got the bleeding under control really fast. And I lost a totally normal amount of blood. Um, and recovery was remarkable. In fact, I kept saying that word. I kept saying, this is remarkable. So she was born a little after midnight. And that day I was just up and walking around like normal. I felt a little sore, a little tired, but I was just like up and just living life. And it was just It was crazy, really. The difference, the difference in my coloring. I just still looked like a person. I was able to walk out of the hospital instead of be wheeled in a wheelchair. And the days and weeks afterwards, I just went on with my life, and I just couldn't believe how like vital and strong I felt, even though I had just birthed a whole human. It just like logically, I couldn't reconcile that for a really long time. Um, Also, my milk came in 24 hours later as opposed to the 4 or 5 days. And then when I started exercising, I had zero problems with the urine leakage or anything like that. I didn't need that pelvic floor physical therapy again, which is just it was just like night and day, completely different experience.
Wow, it sounds like it. So, how long had you been keto and then you went carnivore, and how long were you carnivore before you had your pregnancy?
So I was not keto for very long. I didn't. I lasted a few months um, before going into carnivore, and then carnivore more like 5 or 6 months on carnivore before pregnancy, and then kind of struggled in the beginning of the pregnancy, but came back in the second and third trimester. And I'm 7 months postpartum now, and I've been carnivore since she was born, even in the hospital. Um, yeah, it was great.
Oh, that sounds great. Yes. So, like, you said this was your third pregnancy for carnivore, and then the first you have one before vegetarian or two
I
on? Vegetarian?
Yeah, I was more on a eating sad than really young, just kind of normal. I mean, normal stuff, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's an incredible difference between your pregnancies. Wow. Also, I was going to ask you, about your healing in your body. Did you have a lot of healing after you went carnivore that changed like your gut and things like that after you said you were not feeling good from being vegetarian for so long?
Sure. Yeah. So I continued to have gut issues while doing keto as well, which I realized I was eating a lot of things that were really hard on my gut. They were just tearing it up. So once I finally kicked everything out and I went zero fiber and just ate meat, like everything came together and stopped giving me issues. It was amazing because for years and years and years, all you think is, I need more fiber, I need more fiber, and the fiber is going to help it. And it doesn't. It just made it worse for me. And just going zero fiber, carnivore healed my gut. It definitely healed that hunger. I just don't feel that anymore. I don't experience hunger in nearly the same way as I used to. Um, yeah, it's remarkable.
That is awesome, Charity. And you look so good. You really do.
Thank
You
you.
just look vibrant and healthy and 7 months postpartum. That's really cool. Um, I was going to ask you too, like, what's your coaching philosophy? Because you're coach Charity on Revero, and can
Yeah.
you share with us what your coaching philosophy is?
Yeah, so I like to meet people where they're at. So I like to give a lot of grace. I know for me personally, one of the hardest things coming to carnivore was to change my relationship with food because your whole experience of eating changes. And at first, that's not only uncomfortable, but it feels like it changes for the worse. It's a lot to really sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot to process, right? And it's a lot to work through, and everybody has their own individual journey with that. And so until we can change that, I don't think that anything in the way you eat is going to be sustainable. So I like to meet you with grace. I like to be a source of positivity, a support. I'm not the person that's gonna yell at you because you fell off or something. I just um, I don't know. I like to be positive, I think.
Yeah, that's a great way to be for sure. It would really help some people out, and if anyone's needing a coach, I mean, we know that we eat meat, drink water, but then there's other things that people like to discuss about carnivore and find out, good questions to a coach. So if anyone needs a good coach, check out Charity on Rivero. She'll help you out for sure. Well, thank you so much, Charity, for coming and sharing your success with us. And wow, you have really shown a huge difference between the two pregnancies and everything. So that's really great. So how long have you been carnivore now?
I would say, ugh, it's 2022, like a year and a half, maybe.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. So you think you'll continue always doing this style of eating?
I think so. Currently, I'll have a random day here and there where I might have a serving of fruit or something. But generally, it's not all that appealing. It's I listen to my body. If my body feels like it wants fruit, then I give it to it. But yeah, I can't imagine not eating this way because it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree. So can you tell us real quick what you typically eat in a day?
Sure. So I am mostly beef. I eat most days. I eat only beef. Eggs are pretty regular as well, and to a smaller degree, I eat some pork and some shrimp. But that's pretty much all I'm on right now. Every once in a while, I'll change it up, maybe chicken or something, but it's really 95% beef.
Oh, okay. You don't include any dairy or do you drink coffee, tea, any of that kind of thing?
So I do drink coffee. I drink coffee, not tea so much. I'm pretty dairy free. It's mostly I think because I'm nursing, and my baby's a little bit sensitive to it, but um, I don't miss it too much when I'm off it for a long time. It's when I decide to have it and I'm like, oh, this is really good, and then I want it all the time. So it's not too hard if you stay away from it to just not have it.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those addicting things.
It
Sometimes
is for
it
sure.
can be. Well, thanks again, Charity, and thank you for just sharing all of this information because I believe it'll help many people and especially women that are thinking about their pregnancies or they're carnivore and they're going through the meat aversions. I've heard that often. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing your experience with us.
Well, thank you, Tracy.
You have a great day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.